Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Speakeasy, episode 3 of the myFace and Edrington, let's call it the extravaganza. Zach, does that have a nice ring to it?
I love it, extravaganza.
A beautiful collaboration with two awesome organizations, and we have a very special guest today, Ms. Dina Zuckerberg, the face of myFace. We are all about brand building, and you are building the brand to one of the most amazing groups out there. So hi, Dina. Thanks for joining us again.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And the amazing Mr. Chris Spalding, who is the CEO of Edrington Americas. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Hi, Tommy. It's nice to be back with you, and you're way too kind. So thanks again.
Thank you very much for joining us again. And as always, big timing with the suit jacket, the handsome Zach Berger.
You know, I think we set a trend with the first one where I had the jacket on and I have to stick to it at this point.
And I'm doubling down on the flannel, so I like your style, sir.
We'll keep it going.
But really exciting episode today to have Chris on. Chris, thank you so much for joining again. And Zach gave a brief introduction of the Giving More ethos that Edrington has and why we're doing this. But who better to tell the story than you? So we would love to hear how you feel about Giving More and what Giving More means to Edrington and the Spaldings.
Well, thanks, Tommy and Zach and Dina. It's great that you're here to be able to share with. You know, I think Giving More means different things to different people. I think we personally, it's your connection with Giving More, and I think everybody has a different connection, and that's personal. And I would never like to suggest that it's anything more than personal. I think we're very fortunate, and it means a lot to me personally that Edrington is committed to giving more. And in fact, you know, we give it all, right? We don't just give more, we give it all. We're wholly owned by a charitable trust whose mission is only to have an empty bank account at the end of every year. So I always say we're great capitalists in the way that Robin Hood would be a great capitalist. We can make as much as we can, and then we give it all away. And that's the mandate of Edrington. And I think the support that we have to giving back in the communities that we work and live is really powerful. And we can engage with this in many ways. We can engage with this in group activities, organizations we find as a group. But I think the most powerful message is find something, find your why. And I say it all the time. Find what means something to you that you can engage with and love. And I'll tell a little bit of a story from my life that some have heard before, but it sticks with me, and it's part of who I am today, and talks a lot about what Giving More is to me and to my wife and to my kids and to my greater, my extended family today. But it starts way back as a passionate cyclist. And my wife and I are passionate cyclists, and so are my kids. And anybody who knows, we're absolutely lunatics about riding bicycles. And so some friends of ours back in 2005 had found this cycling event that wasn't for, the occasional cyclist to do fundraising. It was for the hardcore cyclist, and it was to benefit kids living with and beyond cancer. And it was a great group of individuals. It was a great bike ride, and that's what attracted us there. And along the way, you had to raise some money in order to participate in the ride. So we raised some money, and that felt fine. But upon our first ride, and our first ride was 2006, in 10 minutes, we fell in love with the organization. When we got to really understand what they did, how they made a meaningful impact, and got to meet families, kids, and parents they were impacting in such a positive way. And we fell in love with the charity at the end of the bike ride, not the bike ride itself, and the community that came from that. And I think the community piece is really important. I can tell Dina, we just chatted for a few minutes ahead of time, and it's a great community that you're part of. I can sense that right away. And the community part is really the seed of this great situation. And early on, we had to raise $1,500 each, and that seemed like a lot of money. But that was before we were in love. And when we fell in love, actually raising the money became easier and easier as we could tell the story and tell the value of this organization. And I think that's true of all great organizations. So we went on and we became sort of stronger promoters of the organization. It's called the Coast to Coast Against Cancer Foundation. It's a Canadian foundation, by the way, that I'm still very passionate about today. And we got more and more involved and raised more and more funds and did more and more events with them and just really became part of the family. And then when Hunter was born in 2009, my oldest, who's 11, had a very difficult welcoming to the world. We almost lost him. He spent 8 very difficult days in ICU that were touch and go, but he made it through that. And what happened from that was there were a lot of underlying issues that needed to be resolved, some that the medical community could figure out and some that they couldn't. And 6 months in, we were in this pretty dire situation where nobody knew what to do. And we were on a cliff's edge of a couple of these scenarios where he was going to potentially have lifelong complications and lifelong challenges. And it's not that lifelong challenges are bad, because challenges make people wonderful individuals, but it's your 6-month-old child and you want to mitigate these challenges. And in a very hopeless moment where I knew we were up against the clock on a couple of these things that they suggest after 6 months really can't be reversed, I sat in my then Edrington Americas head office, which was in my basement in Georgetown, Ontario. It was the head office for Edrington Americas. Number of employees, 3, and only 1 in my basement. And I sat there in the darkest hour of my life. And I thought about, who do I know who can help me? Because I know who I need to talk to and who can help me, but I can't get access to them. And I went through my Rolodex, as we say, right? And I picked 6 people and I sent them a note and I asked for help. And one of them was the founder of the Coast to Coast Against Cancer organization, who I'd met along the way. Didn't know terribly well at the time. And I said, help. And the next morning, the surgeon that I needed to speak to at 6 Kids Hospital in Toronto was on the phone to me, asking me how we could help. And the next day we went to 6 Kids and we got the red carpet rolled out for us, and we saw everybody we needed to see, and we got set on the right path. And we were able to overcome each and every one of these hurdles for Hunter. And Hunter is fantastic. And the complications are there, and maybe his mom and dad can see them, but nobody else on this planet can see them because they're so subtle. And he's an amazing kid. He's an amazing athlete. He's the warmest, toughest kid in this family who doesn't act tough. He's a great athlete, but will tell you he isn't. He's a great student, but will tell you he isn't. He's humble. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't fit in this family, but he's a great human being. And that might not be the case today without the support of the Coast to Coast Against Cancer Foundation in an unrelated issue. And that only increased my passion, for that charity and that organization, but also for giving more, and the importance of giving more, because it does many things for you. It makes you feel good about giving back to society, but that's easy. When you give and you meet the people you give to, you feel selfish. You feel like, oh my God, could I only do more? Because these people are amazing people and they're much stronger than I am, and they're who I aspire to be, and they didn't choose to be that strong. And then sometimes it opens a gateway that you never thought you would need. And when you're in your darkest hour, it's there for you. So that's a little bit about my story and why it's so passionate to me, passionate for us, for Zoe and myself. And I think as we talk about the community, and we're fortunate to do this professionally, it's also important for us to do it with our families. And people often say, what do you want the impact of Edrington to be? And that's a really interesting question. But one of the things that I always answer is that I actually want a great community of individuals. And those who work for the company, I think we have a great community of individuals. It feels dangerously like family. And it is dangerous for work to feel like family, but it feels dangerously like family. But the thing that I think we can do most is, as people come to Edrington and they graduate from Edrington because they go on and do something else, and we support them in that, if they still give more and they still give back, and they entered Edrington without knowing that this could be such an enriching part of their life, but they leave knowing that it's an enriching part of their lives and continue to do it in something that's meaningful to them, that is a successful time period at Edrington. And if you went to the Robertson Trust, who owns Edrington, and actually gave them a bunch of options and said, what could we do most for the world? I bet you they would agree that creating a community of alumni who give back, I bet you they would rank that number 1. So if I can have any impact on this team for your time with us, it's not the business side. I love the business side. And those who know me know I love the business side. And if you want to have a good debate, just ask me a question. But really, the more meaningful thing for me is what impact are we having in society in our brief time here, and how can we give more? So without getting even heavier, that's a little bit about my story and why it means so much to me. So I'm honored to have an opportunity to share with you. I'm honored to represent Edrington, and I'm really thrilled that Edrington is going to double match myFace and give to that, almost $400 million that we've given away since 1961. So I'll take any more questions, but that's a little bit about my story and my view, guys.
It's incredible. That's an incredible story, Chris. And things that as employees, Zach, I don't know if you knew that, but I didn't know that story. It's my first time hearing it, and it's incredible. And everything else with your boys as well is masked by that beautiful blonde hair that they both have. It's amazing, those locks. And as someone that's losing it, I'm jealous of those. But they are absolutely beautiful boys, and that's an incredible story to hear. And coming in at Edrington and being a distributor guy, and it was hearing like everything about the company, which is just incredible. It's leaning over to Chris. I'm like, is this Chris Giglio? I'm like, is this all real? Like, is this real life? Like, this sounds incredible. And it was kind of like Han Solo in the new movies, where he's like, the Force is real. Like, it's like everything, like he's like, it's all real. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see where that all stems from, because it's so cool to go into market with that and have that behind us and have that care. Like, listen, if you have something you care about and then you love about, you want to give to, we have the means to help you out with that. And that ask of help, it takes a lot for people to go that route. I mean, I know that you're a former athlete and competitive athlete, and it's not easy to ask for help in a lot of times. And it wasn't easy for me either, and or for Ashley. And we're super grateful for an organization like myFace to be there, and to be there almost to the point where we didn't need to ask for it, and they came to us just from us putting our stories out there. And that's what Edrington has done to so many other charities and so many other organizations. And it's really remarkable to have that and to be a part of that, and to hear you say, like, take the giving more component to it. That's the best part. It's huge.
Yeah, and Tommy, sorry, if I could, there's, when you recruit people to Edrington, they don't get it, and we have great people, and a lot of people get recruited all the time, and I think the giving more is, from a business standpoint, for me, it's a huge part of retention. And for people who don't buy into it, I get it. I get that there's a loss there, but it's just a brilliant piece of what the business is, because it's not made up, right? It's real. It really is the ethos of the company. It's not, there's so many organizations out there that go, oh yeah, and we give away, right? They give away a little team, and it's great that they give back. Don't get me wrong, but it's not really fundamental to who they are. And you can do a long story about why do we invest more in the education of our people? Why do we invest more in the healthcare of our people? Why do we invest more in the vacation days of our people? Why do we invest more in the casks? Why do we do a bunch of things the wrong way from an accounting standpoint to make better products? Because we want to give more to society in a charity way. We want to give more to society in a product way. We want to give more to our employees so they can be good parents and good citizens.
And it's awesome. It's incredible. I'm going to bring Tara back on. So Tara is another one of the family members of myFace. So I'm bringing Tara back in. So hello, Tara. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Sorry, it wasn't working.
Welcome
before.
to
Sorry.
all good. Welcome to the party. You are joined by, I know that you know Dina. This is Zach Berger from Edrington, as well as Mr. Chris Spalding. And Chris is the CEO of Edrington. He was just telling his story about what Giving More is and why we're doing this, and just really incredible stuff to come on into. But Chris has been impacted with some early on adversities with his son. He shared his story. My beautiful baby daughter, Harlan, had a bilateral cleft lip. And I understand that your baby boy was born with a cleft lip and palate as well.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Sorry,
Excellent.
I'm a little late.
Oh no, it's all good. It's a shame when that little thing called life gets in the way of good times, right? It's
Just a little bit,
but I greatly appreciate your time and greatly appreciate you guys coming on here. And
Thanks.
Chris just shared his story. And this past Wednesday, Mr. David Afazio, he's one of the founding members of Wyoming Whiskey. He shared the story of his beautiful daughter Flynn, and how he went about his palate. And I figured I would ask you along the same questions that I asked him. And how did you first find out about your the cleft palate and the cleft lip?
Yeah. So I guess I'll take that back. My son's 4 now, Ashwin. He had both surgeries at NYU, and so we've been part of myFace, I guess, ever since then. So we found out, so we don't have family history of cleft lip and palate in our family, so it was a surprise. We found out at my 20-week anatomy scan about it. So, we found out about the lip at the 20-week scan. And then, we of course were very scared and, didn't really understand the diagnosis because we had no history with it. And our family was like a huge shock. And so then I did a fetal MRI after that, and we identified the palate. So he had a unilateral lip and bilateral palate. So he had two holes in his palate. And so then, so that's when we found out. I guess it was good and bad. I don't know if it was tough on my pregnancy, I think, mentally to find out that early. So I always go back and forth of like, I wish I hadn't known, but then I'm sure finding out at delivery would also be equally as hard, if not harder. So it was difficult. I think it was difficult for us, but when we found NYU, of course, and when we found myFace, it definitely eased our concerns a lot. Does that answer the question? I don't know how in-depth people were going, but that's
Oh no, absolutely. And it's as far as you want to go with it. And we found out Ashley and I at that same scan, and we knew nothing about it. And I keep saying this because knowing what I know now, I really wish that people won't tell more people this answer. But when we found out, first I wasn't there because of COVID times, so I wasn't allowed to be in the room. So I actually had to come and deliver the message again. Yeah, and I say like I'm the most sensitive 280-pound tattooed boxer that you'll ever meet. So that must have been even more tougher for Ashley. But it resonates because that the perfect pregnancy is gone, and like that feeling of it. And what the technician said to Ashley was, don't go and research this. Don't go and look at anything, which I think is one of the worst things to say now, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
Because you don't find out about these amazing.
Yeah, you don't. We had the same experience, and this is something that I've been working with myFace on actually recently. It's like, how do you improve that part? Like the delivery of the information to us. We were at Mount Sinai at the time, and so I ended up switching to NYU, but for the delivery even, because I just felt that, like, to your point, there was like very little information given to me. In fact, the information that was given to us was the worst case scenario, and we didn't know any better. So we went like worst case. It's associated with all these very scary and serious conditions, or just other things that we automatically were like, well, of course it's the worst case scenario, because that's just what happens when you're scared. And it was our first pregnancy, and so it was the same thing. It was like, in fact, it was delivery of that information and like not enough of the resources and reassurance and like, what, you're still having a baby. This is just, it could be just isolated. And thankfully for us, it was just isolated. But I think one of the things that like we're working closely with, that I'm working with Stephanie on, is like, how do you improve the delivery of the information and the resources, like educating the technicians and the doctors doing the scans, like educating them on where to send the patients. Here's myFace is a resource that I wish I had when I was 20 weeks pregnant with Ashwin. Someone to say to me, here's like a whole roster of families that you can call for questions and advice and, you know, the doctors that you want to see. Like I met with every plastic surgeon in the city, pediatric plastic surgeon, because I didn't know. I went to Columbia, I went to Sinai, I went to everywhere. And then finally we went to NYU because we found a referral, a personal referral through all of the research that we were doing. But it was such a like chase to find the right place to go. And it was so stressful, you know, I was pregnant and like you're working. It was just like, I just wish that it had been easier
Same.
for me. And I see families struggling, and I volunteer now at the, not now, but before COVID, I volunteered at the Cleft Clinic. I would go on Wednesdays and just hold babies for moms that were exhausted, or just be, because I wish that someone had done that for me when I was pregnant and sitting in the waiting room, terrified. I wish that a mom would be like, do you want some coffee? Do you want to talk about, you know, I'm here to talk. And I wish that that had been more prevalent, I guess.
Absolutely. And it's huge. It's just not knowing and not getting that information. I feel the same way. I wish that we had the myFace organization while we were expecting. Luckily, Ashley, my wife, was huge with what was happening, and she disagreed with everything that everyone said and just went out there and started doing her homework. And I'm so grateful that she did, because that's how we found our way to go into these Facebook groups. And it was a blessing in disguise having these Facebook groups. And it wasn't that inside of the room hug that you're explaining, but to be able to talk with other parents who were actively going through it, to be able to talk with kids that were now grown up, 15, 16 years old. They were like, yeah, I went through it. It's all good. You know, it was a breath of fresh air. And that's why I'm obsessed with the myFace organization, because even though that you, Ravi, myself, and Ashley, we didn't have that, there are plenty of other people that can have it. And that's really, really exciting. And that's why we are doing this. And that's why Edrington is kind enough to offer their Giving More platform to double match what we have going on. And that's why we ask you guys to please go out there and try to give as much as you can for us. You know, it's double matching for up to $25,000. Big jump from last week. We were at $200 on Wednesday, and we're currently at $2,300 and growing. So good stuff going on. But yeah, it's that those small things. And Tara, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
But also in the clinics and talking with other parents, because it's huge and it's necessary, and we need that. We definitely need that in the community. We need some more hugs. We need some more love. You know, it's amazing to go through. So thank you.
Can I just share that we've been talking so much about community tonight, and last night I had a parent group, and I had about 10 parents on, and one parent was actually talking from the hospital room. Her son was in the hospital yet again, and she was really having a hard time. This is his 16th surgery. He's only 3.5 years old. And not 16th surgery, but he was in the hospital because he was having some issues, but he's had 16 surgeries. And she's having a really hard time and thinking about how can she keep going and how did the other parents do this? And then another parent whose son is about 5, who's had 17 surgeries, same condition, started talking about how to just take it day by day, and that there's a community of support here, and that, yeah, there are some days that are going to be really hard, but there are going to be some days that you're going to get through it, and you're going to look back, and he's going to remember those moments that you were there for him. That's what I actually said. And then another mother whose child is now in her 20s, and she was also born with a condition, had one surgery every year of her life through a couple years of college, but graduated college cum laude, is now a nurse in the PICU, actually at NYU. And so by the end of the whole parent group, my point is that this mother, who was having such a hard time coming into it, just felt so much better. And then I got a note afterwards from the mom saying, I really appreciate you, because I send her this information about the parent group every time, and she just hasn't had the time and just feeling so overwhelmed. and she was so glad she came because there was a community for her last night, and she felt so much better afterwards because she just couldn't see beyond where she was in that very moment. So
it's huge. And like Chris said, ask for help. Just that get in there and to have that community there waiting for you. People like you, Dina, like Karen, like Stephanie, like Tara. It's huge. It's absolutely tremendous. And the way that I found my way to NYU was through that Facebook support group. Mm-hmm. And there was just like 3 degrees of separation. There were so many weird ways that it's been a wild week, 3rd live in a row, and I just had a tasting as well. So I'm forgetting the girl's name. I'm so sorry. But she reached out to me and she was like, "Have you chosen your clef team yet?" And she was, "Please go to NYU. Like, please call and just try to get an appointment with them." And NYU is a monster team in this world. And we were talking with a few different people, like, let's give it a try. And we called NYU, and I think it was a Wednesday. And we got an answer, and we got an appointment. We got an appointment for that coming Monday. I'm like, wow, this is great. Like, amazing. About 45 minutes later, Pat from Dr. Flores' office called us, apologizing for the wait that we were going to have. And here we are, just like grateful that we're getting in the building, And she was like, "No, newborn, you told us we have your story. Can you come in on Friday?" So got us in 3 days earlier, but just the sense of urgency. Also, it was her day off. And that right there just says what myFace and that NYU team is all about, because that blew me away. And I looked at Ashley, I'm like, "This is our team, right?" She goes, "Yeah." We just stopped talking to everybody else. And we were gung-ho, and we were all about getting involved, and 1,000% made the right decision because it's such a beautiful, beautiful team.
Tommy, can I just say a reaction to the conversation? I think, there's a lack of awareness here, right? Of these challenges, and that sounds like a wonderful community out there. So I think we should put our heads together a little bit in amplifying our community in maybe a little bit different way than we have before, just purely as an awareness, not a donate to myFace, not a anything, but we're doing that as well. But I have some ideas, and if we just used our social network to amplify just the simplest awareness piece about this, and we can probably get it to thousands of people that will then be forwarded to thousands of other people. So let's think about how we just do something really shareable, and then we commit as a whole organization that everybody just hits share in their personal Facebook page or whatever platform they use. Let's do something like that, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah. And we were planning on making a few snippets on that, but we will have a shareable piece that we can get out there. And I appreciate that. Thank you. That'd be amazing for sure.
Thank you.
And Tara and Chris, I know that you guys are crunched on time. So if you do got to sign off, thank you guys so much for joining us. And Tara, anything else to share before you do have to sign off? Thank you again for joining us and sharing your story. I look forward to meeting you in person and hopefully doing that whiskey tasting that we were speaking about.
Yes,
so
we're really excited. That is going to be really fun. So thank you. And thanks for your support. It's so nice to see, when new families come in and families who are passionate. It's really nice. And we love that. So thank you for having us and for being in touch with us. We appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
right.
we'll definitely talk soon. Thank you, Tara.
Okay.
Thanks, Tara.
Bye, Tara.
But it really is just amazing stuff, like how small things happen and how people are put together. And Chris, Ashley and I were on an event committee with Dina, and we were going to try to do something for her spring talent show, which is normally in person, but this is now going virtual. And that's when Zach reached out with Valerie to say that they wanted to go gung-ho with this. And it just started snowballing, and with Stephanie and with Karen just putting us in touch with multiple people in the organization, just like how you were saying how it could reach so many different people in that social network. It's the exact same thing is happening. And she's like, "Oh, well, you're a whiskey guy. Let's do a whiskey tasting and we'll raise money through that." Perfect. Beautiful. I'm doing my job and then also raising awareness. It's a beautiful thing. It's good stuff.
I think we have, hey, you use the tools that are available to you, right? We can geek out about whiskey as well as the best. So that's always fun.
Absolutely.
And Tommy, with everything, so the reason we got this rolling initially was because of the bravery of you and Ashley sharing everything on social media and really telling your story and kind of taking us along on your journey. And we have, there's going to be a baby born in my family in the next couple of weeks. And I've been able to kind of sit back and hear about their experience and hear about all the experiences of everyone who's been on. And I'm new to this community. I don't have any kids, and so the Uncle Zach, I love it. But the things that I'm hearing is, all the lessons that everybody has learned are parallel, right? And so it was really interesting to me that the community that surrounds my sister-in-law is this really large community of all these people who want to share all these stories about their pregnancy. And then when we started talking about myFace, I was shocked to find out that the size of that community was so small. And so, Chris, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And I hope that the next steps that we take to be able to expand that community and increase that outreach, I really look forward to that. And it's just been an absolute pleasure to be able to do this. I mean, it's been a week, right, Tommy, since we've started this, and we've already raised $2,230, and it's only growing. So for everybody who's tuning in, if you want to make a donation, this is the website you're going to go to. It's www.myface.org/Edrington. Edrington is double matching up to $25,000. So we're 18% of the way to the goal for the double match. And we have some time. We have until the end of this month for that double match to take place. So for everybody who's donated so far, we thank you very much. For everyone who is going to donate, of course, we thank you. And in addition to the monetary support, just the communal support, being able to spread the word, share our videos online. You can visit these at the Digital Speakeasy or the YouTube page for myFace, and you can see all the episodes that we've done and the episodes coming up.
And Chris, thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for telling your story and for everything that you do to lead the way with the with giving more and everything, being the fearless leader for our company. It's amazing. I tell Chris Gilly all the time. It's like three people say things and I'm running right through a wall: Chris Spalding, Lisa Derman, and Chris Gilly. Just
it's an easy team to lead.
It's amazing. And actually, I have another person before you sign off. My lovely wife, Ashley, is wanted to join on the say hi.
Hi.
But yeah,
I just want to thank you, Chris. Truly. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you for sharing your story. That was amazing. I'm very happy I got to come on just to say that, because I was going to write it.
Thanks. I mean, I just honestly, I love my job and I love the people, and I think, that's you can get another story, right? If you can find a life you love the work part of it, isn't that grand? It's just the best. It's
everything.
I
Tommy
agree.
talks about that all the time. Absolutely.
And I just want to say how grateful we are at myFace for all of what you guys are doing for us, and all the awareness and the fundraising that you're doing for us. We're really grateful for that. So thank you.
Got to get that number up. That's all I'm worried about now.
we got to get going. So Chris, since you brought up Dina, I have a question for you. If you could talk a little bit about the money that's being donated, where do those funds go? What is it going to be used for?
So it will go to helping the children and adults with craniofacial differences with the comprehensive care that they need, with the psychosocial support they need, with the resources they need, everything they need to lead full and productive lives. And many of our children can have multiple surgeries. As I said earlier, they can have as few as one, but they can also have as many as 20 plus surgeries throughout their childhood and into adulthood. And I always like to say it's a journey. It starts from when the day they are born, but it goes for many, many years. And I think what makes myFace so unique is that we help with everything on this journey, from the day they're born until they're adults and even that I have a support group for the adults, and they are in their 20s and older, and they're at a point where they want to figure out how they can give back and how they can mentor the younger generation. I think, like I was saying earlier, there is this incredible community, and we have the opportunity to reach so many more, especially now that I think being in this virtual world, that didn't really, I think because everything was in person before, the idea that we're now virtual has allowed us to reach so many more people. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times in the last few months I've heard somebody say, I've never met anybody else with a craniofacial difference, and how grateful they are to have that opportunity. So, and we've been around for 70 years. So this is our 70th anniversary. So
It's a good number.
yeah, absolutely.
And it's wild to never meet, because 1 in 700 really isn't that scarce of a situation, and it's wild. And our mission statement, as we mentioned last week, was just for people to understand it more and be more open about it and be more understanding of what it is. And that's not that wild of a number. 1 in 700. It's pretty up there. And then you realize that you're meeting people that have this in their life or might have had it themselves that you would never even know, because of amazing people like Dr. Flores. And it's a wonderful world. It really is. And it's amazing to have it in so many levels, from the mother giving birth to the child growing up and understanding it, the speech pathologists that are helping these children, just everyone around them. It's a truly beautiful, beautiful thing.
Yeah.
And Ash, we were talking a little bit about, I don't know if you heard Tara being on, but talking about like that perfect pregnancy. And I would love for you to tell your part of it and how, because my wife's amazing. I mean, it's just like, I always say that. And I always say that I'm not afraid of a lot of people, but I'm terrified of Ashley. And her grit and toughness came out in a way that I've never seen before. Once she found out the road that we had ahead. And there you go, David. See, I got to cry too. You're welcome. But she, while dealing with this, also comforted me and everyone else around our family with it. And it was remarkable to see. So Ash, I would just love for you to tell your side of it.
Thank you.
Really quickly, I'm so sorry. Wanted to be respectful of Chris's time. Chris, just want to say thanks again so much for joining us. And we look forward to chatting again with you soon.
Guys, it was such an honor. I'm sorry I've got to drop up. I got to go feed those kids. But anyway, great to see you all today. It was really nice to meet you. And I'm a supporter. Okay, and we're gonna get and figure out how we amplify this even more. Okay, and I want to be part of that conversation.
Thank you so much, Chris.
So much.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
See you soon. There we go. Sorry, Ash, I just wanted to
No, it's okay. When you're a little girl, you have like even nursery rhymes that say first comes love, then comes baby, then comes marriage, then comes baby in the baby carriage. Everything that you hear and see is you get married, you have a baby. And obviously now our world is different too. Where you just, you have kids, you don't get married or whatever. But the same story goes as far as having a child. It just, everything around it is, are you going to start trying? Like even when you start, when you are married or when you're at an age where I guess people start to assume like, oh, maybe you're going to have a kid. It's, are you going to start trying? Are you going to have children? And so all of those questions, I think, lead to this assumption that it's our choice, right? And to be honest with you, it's not that easy. It's not that simple at all. And I have so many friends that have gone through IVF and that have tried to have kids, and they couldn't, or It just took years. I have someone very close to me that also, had that same scenario. And I think I call it fantasy pregnancy because I think that there's so much fantasy around having a child. And of course it is a beautiful thing, but to get there, there definitely can be, obstacles. And, when here I was so excited to be pregnant. And even during COVID, it didn't matter. I didn't care. If anything, I thought it was a blessing during such a hard time. And for me, you walk in, you just think like, oh, you're going into these sonograms and you're seeing the baby and you get the picture, like you see it in movies all the time, right? It's this exciting thing. And so when you hit the 20-week scan, it's called an anatomy scan. And basically they're able to see the organs, the exoskeleton, like all the parts of a human at that time. And so that's when they're able to see, the facial structure. And so when you're sitting in there and, you're really challenged with like, oh my God, all of your emotions are so challenged because you hear this and it's also the way that it's delivered, which is another thing we could talk about. I mean, I could talk about so many things, and but it's not that way. It's not, it's just not that simple. And I think that if we make that more talked about, then maybe we would then have more conversation about where, what can happen during these scans, because that's mostly most people, if it's a cleft lip, the palate's a different scenario. If it's a cleft lip, then at the 20-week scan, that's when women find out for the most part, since, medical, tools have evolved, if you will. So I think, we should probably be more prepared to walk into that and know, one, that it's okay, not to make it, because then since it's like a kind of like a secret, it almost makes it like negative too. So that's part of, I think, where, what Tommy's explaining about how I always say fantasy pregnancy. It's just, it is a beautiful, beautiful thing, but that doesn't mean that it's completely perfect from the day that you find out to the day that you give birth.
Mm-hmm. So, Ashley, would you say that we've been able to talk about this a lot, and I feel like the message that you've had and kind of the advice that you would give has stayed the same, which is that it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to talk about this. Would you say a little bit more about that, about being able to reach out and feeling confident enough in that, there's a level of confidence where you have to say, okay, this isn't the fantasy pregnancy anymore, but this is still perfect, and this is still okay, and this is still my baby.
Right. Yeah. I think that we've had this conversation. I've had this conversation with many women, and the commonality or the common thing that we hear is there's always something. And I don't want to put a negative thing around that. But what I will say is that something, right? What is that something? And I think what we need to do, and it gets a lot more deeper than just like asking the right questions. But what I do believe is it has to start, for one, in the office, in the medical offices, because that's where it has to start. Mm-hmm. Because I'll tell you, Zach, when I found out, there was no one to tell me where to go, right? Like, here I am, I'm sitting and getting this scan, and he's telling me, that he was a genetic specialist, right? So here he is giving me the scan and he's explaining it to me, and I'll explain it to you because it's super, it's very interesting the way that he explained how it happens. But there was no advice. There was no like, hey, there's an NYU team. There's this team. There's a Facebook page. I've dealt with, I have experienced other women that have had cleft lip palate. Let me see if I can get you their information. So that's where it normalizes, in my opinion, because we're not in the medical field. And to be able to get that out there, it only takes a few people. I mean, listen, I could tell you right now, the other day I was working and there were these two women sitting there and we started talking and I explained it to them and they were just like, and they're young women and their mouths were wide open. And I was like, I just want to spread awareness. And they said, well, you just did. And it was only two women, that's how it happens. And I'll tell you this quickly. So the way that this doctor explained it to me, and it was the best way I think anyone's ever explained it, is when your body starts to form, you're almost like when you make like a paper snowflake, right? Okay, so there's two sides to your body, and it starts to come together, and it actually happens in the 4 to 6 week. Like the baby's only 4 to 6 weeks, teeny tiny. But if you think of it as a zipper, you're almost getting zipped up. You're zipping up your body to come to a hole. And what happens is when it comes to the face, the zipper catches. And it almost like takes a little leap. And that's how your face and your body forms. And that's how you can kind of understand what happens to the face when you have a cleft lip or like, an imbalance, if you will. And I found that to be super interesting. So if anyone's wondering how it happens, you can think of it. I mean, it makes it very simple. Don't get me wrong, but it's like zipping up your body.
It's a great description because when I do the school presentations and I talk to the students, it's a question I get asked. So how did it happen? And it's a great way for me to describe
Such a good way to, right? Like a great analogy. So I thought that was interesting good. I'm glad you could use it.
Yeah, I think I will.
That was super. But that's if that helps, Zach, that's where I believe it needs to start. Like, never mind the questions. These medical professionals need to share more because it will normalize it. It won't make it so, it's such a difference, if you will.
And Ash, I would love for you to speak with Tara, who was just on, and she was saying the exact same thing that you are. And I have their info. We'll talk to them offline, but it's necessary. And I think every time we've come on, I told the story about that gentleman saying, "Don't go and look at anything online."
Yeah,
and it still bothers me. But because. I mean, we could have found Dina earlier. We could have found myFace earlier, and we could have found help earlier. But it's good stuff.
I think education is so important, and I would almost argue that even educating medical students, even when they're in medical school, I remember years ago speaking to medical students actually at NYU, and it was a panel of adults all with craniofacial differences, and They never were exposed to that because they're exposed to the medical side, but they're not actually seeing the human side and all that comes with that. And it really was amazing for them to experience that. And I remember someone in the audience saying exactly that. They'd never met anybody with craniofacial difference. And they talked a lot about how patient care and talking to patients and we're really curious about that. What's the best way to do that? So I almost argue you need to educate them in medical school, but then you need to educate. I mean, it's really all about educating a lot of people. It's educating the medical community. It's educating teachers and administrators. It's public awareness and education is so key, in my opinion.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And it's everything, it's for what Ashley does for a living, what Zach and I do for a living. It's education is key, it's great. And I'll go back to Gleason's in a boxing gym, and people were talking about going pro and doing all this. And it's like, hey, you could go pro, but you could try to do your best boxing, but a lot of things could take away your boxing career. Nobody can take away your education. And it's more important than anything else. So education is always key. Got to spread the word. Well, we're coming to the end of this session. I wanted to let you know that we raised another $100 during this session for the fundraiser. So that just makes me smile. I've been refreshing the website a couple times today to kind of track those things. So that's very exciting. We have a really exciting week coming up next week. We have Mark Bromfeld, who's the Edrington Director of Corporate Affairs and Social Responsibility. He will be on. We'll have Dina will be back. Karen Lazarus will be joining us back on Friday with Valerie Marks. We're going to be making cocktails. So that will be a 21 plus episode next Friday, because we're going to be making some drinks with Partita Tequila and having a conversation about more of the charitable giving. Of course, everybody is welcome to join us if you are above 21. And of course, if you want to donate, I'll say it for the last time today, go to the website, www.myface.org/Edrington. We are double matching up to $25,000 for the end of March. We're 19% of the way there. You heard it from our CEO and president of Edrington Americas, Chris Spalding, saying we gotta get the money there. So if we get to $12,500, Edrington will write a check for $25,000. So let's keep spreading the word. Let's keep get the information out there. If you want to see the videos, go to the Digital Speakeasy on Facebook. That's what it's called, Facebook, or YouTube. Also the myFace YouTube. You can check out all of our previous videos and episodes, as well as the ones coming up for the rest of the month. We have a couple more. We're going all the way up until the very last day of the month. That's a Wednesday, when we're going to hopefully be able to have as many people back as we can to just say hello. And, to Dina and Tommy and Ashley, I just want to say, I'm a new member of this community, and it has been so just valuable for me to be able to just listen to your stories and listen to the education. And it is so much more than I had hoped for, which was, I was just hoping to kind of raise some money and do a little bit of outreach. And this has been just so incredibly rewarding for me. So I want to say thank you to the three of you and to everybody who has joined. I'm going to be Uncle Zach real soon, but it's you already are. Harlan's going to call you Uncle Zach.
I love it. But it's been a real treat and a real pleasure and a real honor to be here and to hear your stories and be able to be on screen with you. So thank you to everybody who's joined, and especially the three of you.
And as always, thank you for putting this all together, Zach. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Dina, for sharing your time again and joining us. You guys are awesome. I look forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Get ready, Karen. We're making some cocktails. We'll see you guys very soon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you.
Ciao.